In the Tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the Tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Sean.
And we're back at it again. We're talking MLB, recapping the deadline that happened this week, looking at the Central Divisions. We're going to talk a little bit of football. We're going to talk a little bit of hockey. And we're also going to bring in a new kind of touch to it. We're going to talk about our top five-ish favorite moments as sports fans. Some of it is our own teams because we're biased, and some of it isn't. So we're going to see how that goes, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, so let's start out with the AL Central. I don't think much changed from what I was expecting. The Indians are at the top. Actually, it's kind of a pretty big spread at the top. The Indians have a 9-game lead on the Twins, right?
Right.
So, I don't know, like, I kind of expected them not to have that much of a lead, but the rest of the division's, like, exactly where I expected.
Yeah, it's been like this for the AL Central pretty much the whole year. Tigers, White Sox, and Royals have been rebuilding, and the Indians are really the only team that still are in a competitive window. So, I mean, the Twins made the playoffs last year, but they sold at the deadline. Brian Dozier was probably their best player in the past few years. He was going to be a free agent this offseason, so he was traded away to the Dodgers. And so it's pretty clear, even though they're only in second place in the division, that what they're trying to do is to still benefit their future more than their current season. So
yeah, true. So I mean, their deadline moves do say that they're more of a building for the future team. So I guess I can understand their gap in record.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the Twins would not be a hard team to root for if they were doing well, and they're not far off from doing well this far into this season, but only 8 games under 500. I just don't know that there's enough time for them to turn it around and really be a contender. With the way that the AL looks, remember, because we still see that either the Yankees or Red Sox, the Red Sox are in first now, I believe, but one of those two teams is going to be the first wild card team. The second wild card team
is looking like
if it's
Oakland
if it's
and,
not right. If it's not a team that's strong right now, I don't think that a team that slips in really is seen as a possible contender, as much as they're seen as they were lucky to get there.
Yeah, so the second wild card team for the AL is looking like Oakland or Seattle. So, I mean, those two teams, I mean, they're not doing great, but they're doing well enough to where the Twins would still need to do a lot of work just to catch up with them. So,
yeah, I think Seattle is probably in a better position just because they're doing what they're doing without Cano. Baseball is only one guy, so Cano doesn't have that huge impact, but obviously the loss of him is more significant than him in the lineup. So, just in terms of how much they invested in him. So, let's see. I'm kind of surprised that the Athletics are doing as well as they have.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because, remember, last year they had, was it last year or a year before, they had Sonny Gray, and they traded him to the Yankees.
Yep, last year.
They traded Donaldson a few years ago. It seemed, they've kind of rebuilt themselves into a contender, or a borderline contender, relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
I mean, we're
It's
not
hard to
talking
root for a
about that
team
AL,
like that,
so
or hard to root against a team like that. But
yeah, it is. But I mean, again, we're talking about the Central Division, and again, I don't think the Central Division really surprises us for
yeah,
AL.
no. Well, like I said, when most of the division is going through a rebuild, it's really hard to elaborate on this division. It's one that it's what you see is what you get. When you look at the standings, nothing really surprises you. It's all what you expected that the Central Division would be.
Yep.
And what the weird thing is in a couple of years, the Indians the Central Division could look exactly the same, because if someone's rebuild doesn't work out, they stay in the same place as they're at now. The Indians' window is probably going to close in a few years, and it's going to be whoever completed their rebuild best and succeeds.
Yeah, but I mean,
We could see this
you can
kind of
also
format
see
where one team is like single-handedly up on it. It could be like a no contest division for a couple of years.
yeah, but you could also see that like in 5 years, like the entire division is completely upside down.
That's very true. It's hard to tell because it depends on the team. Some teams have had rebuilds in sports that last a dozen years. Some have ones that last like a year and a half. So it's hard to base just based off of each organization how long a rebuild is going to last.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see as time goes on, but that's not really this year's problem.
Mm-hmm.
So with that,
Moving on to the NL
jump
Central.
to the NL. Yeah, so Cubs in first, a game and a half out are the Brewers. Pirates are in third, Cardinals in fourth. Pirates and Cardinals are playing each other right now. I think Cardinals are winning that game so far, so it's probably going to be that they're tied in the standings by the end of the night. And the Reds are rounding out the division.
Yeah, but actually, so the team that I'm like most surprised about in those are the Pirates. Actually had like a 10-game winning streak or something.
11-game winning streak.
The Pirates fan would know. Yes, an 11-game winning streak, and they didn't
And not
really
to take
like
anything away from that, because I'm just as surprised that it happened, but they also did benefit from the fact that their winning streak came before and after the All-Star break. You get all your rest in the middle of in the middle of a win streak. That's pretty good. So
Yeah,
they
but
definitely benefit from that. Whereas other teams, they lose. Like who was it? The Brewers lost 5 straight games to the Pirates or something of that nature going into the All-Star break.
Mhm.
So coming out of it, they could win a lot of games, but
I'm just
it's hard to
surprised
base. Yeah,
that
go ahead.
like the Pirates, they had that 11-game winning streak, even though they had that All-Star break in between. That is both like a saving grace and could be the opposite, right? Because you don't know what that rest is going to do to your team, right? Especially if some of them, however many of them, go to the All-Star game and what they do there, right? That just throws people off sometimes.
Well, they were lucky in terms of what you're saying about All-Stars. Not really lucky,
only
I
had
guess,
one,
but
right?
they had one All-Star, and he was the closer. So, at most he's getting an innings work, and probably since it's the All-Star game, you probably get one out if you're the closer because they go through all the relievers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, so I mean, they got lucky in that aspect, but doing it even with the break, I think that was really surprising and good by that team. And it's not like they, after that 11-game winning streak, it's not like they fell out. Like, if any other bottom tier team, no offense, was to do this type of like 10-game winning streak, the next thing you'll hear is like, oh, they just lost 20 of their last 25.
Well, I think it's interesting because like they went on the win streak, and then naturally, as a fan, after the first loss in a while, you're like, okay, now it's time to get that over with and get back onto a win streak. And obviously, that's not really rational that it would happen like that. But at the same time, they since then have in the last 10 games have gone 6-4. So they've had their share since then of winning a game and then dropping a game. So I think they got to get back to some winning
Yeah, but
game,
like,
winning baseball, and do it a little bit more frequently because they're in a position where they can catch that second wild card spot, but there's not going to be a lot of time to make up that ground. So it's kind of imperative that they do it sooner and have, when it comes to September time, that it's a minor jump to make instead of like 5 games with 2 weeks left.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you look at, like, even if I replace the name Pirates have a 10-game win streak or 11-game win streak with, like, Mets, right? The next thing you expect to hear for a Mets 10-game win streak is they just lost 20. Or lost double that because they can't be that consistent normally, right? And
Right.
the fact that even once they hit that bump in that 11-game win streak and started losing, they've basically gone 500. It shows that the win streak, although it's not like they keep winning, it's more of they didn't let that loss swing them into the downward momentum that a lot of other teams would fall in.
You're right. I just think that they could be playing better because if you see that they've been able to perform at such a high level for as long as they did, I'm not asking them to win every single game from there on out, but you can see what they're capable of, and to see them lose somewhat more frequently to a point that they're playing around 500 baseball since then. I feel like they've seen what works and kind of like back away from it, and that's just a little aggravating as a fan. But it's their win streak was very timely because with the trade deadline being like around 5 days after the end of the win streak, they were able to convince management, who were saying before the win streak, gee, I wonder how much we can get for a player like David Freese in a trade, to saying, what can we add to this team to try to make it to the playoffs, which is a big swing from basically saying that we're going to enter rebuild mode to how can we make this team better for years to come and still try to make the playoffs.
True.
So, yeah.
But enough about the Pirates. Like, I guess the rest of the teams, have they even changed since last time we talked about them?
It's been a while since we talked about the other teams. The Reds still in the basement. I feel like the last time we talked about the NL Central, the Brewers were in first.
Yeah, but we said they were going to flip-flop, right? Because I still think that the Brewers and Cubs it's anyone's win of the division.
I don't know, because the Cubs are just so talented from top to bottom. I think the Brewers are close, but I don't think that they have the depth that the Cubs do. It's kind of hard to put yourself in a position where you have such a complete roster like the Cubs do.
Okay.
I'd be happy to be wrong, but at the same time, like, the Brewers are a team that I don't really want to see succeed either. So,
well, yeah. Do you want to see any of these teams succeed more than the Pirates?
well, no, it's because as a Pirates fan, like, the Brewers were our hump team for a lot of years. This is a team that we couldn't beat even when like they were rebuilding and the Pirates were good. So, like, now that they've kind of got over the hump and can beat them semi regularly, and now they're getting good again. It makes it harder to like them and harder to root for them.
Yeah, true.
Kind of want things to continue at the norm that they were at. So.
Yeah, so
All right, so
you want to move on to the trade deadline deals that we think were
yeah,
most notable?
yeah. So I mean, the Orioles, they were tanking this, or then they weren't taking. I can't talk right now. They weren't tanking, so to speak, at the beginning of the year, but they just naturally and unintentionally maybe put together one of the worst teams in baseball history. Um, and so Manny Machado, he was going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and there were rumors that he was going to get traded for pretty much all of this season. Uh, at some point, I think there was a rumor that he was going to get traded to the Phillies, and then like a week later, that still hadn't happened. So near the trade deadline, he ends up getting traded to the Royals, which is probably one of the teams he would have ended up on in coming years, just because they have such a big payroll, and so yeah, I mean, for if you're the Orioles, you had to get something for him if you're committing to like trying to have a
Didn't he get
future.
traded to
Because
the
right,
Dodgers?
I said from the
Oh,
Orioles. If
no,
you're
but
the
you said,
Orioles,
did you say to the Royals? I thought you said, I'm sorry.
no Orioles.
Okay.
I just didn't enunciate well. Um, yeah. Because we're recording on a Saturday night.
Eh,
So yeah, I don't know. It's a trade that like a team like the Dodgers, they do this every year. They'll add a big piece or a big name because they can, and it may or may not work out. But it's the Dodgers. They'll do it.
yep.
They did the same thing. They picked up Brian Dozier, another guy who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I'm sure they got rid of some good prospects to, take on his services for the last stretch of games. But
It's like 2 months.
yeah, so I don't know how well it will work out, because Machado, he'll probably end up being a starter for the Dodgers, but Dozier may very well end up being a bench bat. I don't know that they take Chase Utley out of the lineup just
Eh.
because he's really not shown, as far as I know, any sign of like being horrible this year. And then they've got Justin Turner, who was playing third. So it's like it's hard to bench those guys for Machado and Dozier. I feel like one of them gets put on the bench. I don't know that the other one does.
Yeah, I think they're going to start Machado.
I wonder if they move Turner to second. I think he played some second when he was with the Mets. So
Probably. Yeah. I'm pretty
it'll
sure the
be
Mets played
interesting to
infield
see.
roulette.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Mets. And speaking of the Mets, they traded Asdrubal Cabrera to the Phillies. Not a huge move, I guess, but like
I'm just surprised it
yeah,
was within their, division.
yeah, I guess that is a little surprising, but I don't feel like the Mets were feeling like this was the year to make that really hard on the Phillies, because the Phillies probably don't pose so much of a threat when it comes to playoff time. They're in a position where they can make the playoffs, but they're an up and coming team. That's why I think that this move of trying to get Asdrubal Cabrera instead of some of these other bigger names makes more sense, because it's a grow with the team kind of move instead of like putting the team on a pedestal that they can't reach just yet.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought the Mets were going to make a move, and they did. I mean, they obviously traded away Cabrera, but
Mm-hmm.
the Phillies weren't my, primary thought as far as the team they were going to make a deal with. It just
Yeah.
didn't seem like that was going to be the case. I mean, it ended up being the case, and hey, I mean, that happens, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't expect the Phillies to be anywhere near the position to even make the playoffs. I was going into this year, I was firmly committed to, or not committed, but expecting that they were still well within a rebuild. I thought they were going to stink for a couple more years at the very least, and I guess good for them that they're competitive again. I kind of like the move for a role player like Cabrera instead of the big name.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it makes more sense this way.
But see, that's what I think. Like trade deadlines, like we focus on big names, but I do think that the teams that don't pick up the big name, but more that niche player that fills their weakness or the gap they have is better because it's not really like shaking their lineup up too much or shaking their infield up or out or position players out to a different level. Like when you insert like a big bat, you're changing the lineup completely, right? Because like either the same guy who bats like 9 can end up batting number 1 in that case because you had to switch the guy from whoever was batting 4 originally down or up, and everything just changes.
Yeah, no, you're right. And sometimes the big name, you pay such a heavy price for a big name that if it goes wrong, it can take away something from a team that really didn't need it to be taken away. Because when you acquire the big name, oftentimes you have an MLB roster player that goes to the other team, and when that trade doesn't work out, you traded away probably some guy who meshed within what you were making in the storyline that you were creating that year, and what fit in the locker room, just to have someone who was established at a quality level but may not fit what's going on in what you do.
Yeah, but speaking of big names, right? The Pirates made a pretty big splash, well, way bigger than I thought they would on the other way for the trade deadline. So you want to go into that?
Yeah, because from 2013 to 2015, and the Pirates were making the playoffs in those 3 years, they never made trades like this. So it kind of surprised me that these trades came to fruition, because this team was a team that went from seller mode to borderline contender mode, at least within their own organization's doors, really quickly. And I don't know what they did outside of winning and going on that win streak right before the deadline, that they convinced management not to see what they could get for players and instead go for the big names. They got Chris Archer, they got Keon Kelo, who's a relief pitcher from Texas. So it surprised me. Kind of happy that they did this, but it's also they did this because both these guys have years left on their contract. These weren't rental moves. These guys have at least 3 years on their contract left.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not the type of move you expect the Pirates to make, and
right. It's a move as a Pirates fan that I'm hopeful they'll make, but never believe that they will.
Yeah, as an outsider, I was like, the Pirates are going to sell again this year. But when I heard that trade go through, I literally just sat there and I stared at it. I was like, wait, are we sure that this is real?
Yeah, I mean, it took hours of tracking it on my phone to realize, because keep in mind, was it the trade deadline's at 4 o'clock, and just because there were reports saying that the trade is close doesn't mean at 4 o'clock that they had to be traded. Tampa Bay with Archer, they very well could have just said, we don't have to do anything here. We could try this again next year, because they've been fielding offers for him for years. So, as excited as I was getting with the reports of Pirates are becoming front runners for Pirates are heavily involved, is that's all great, but if 4 o'clock passes, it doesn't matter how heavily involved they were if they didn't get it done. So the fact that they got it done just surprised me. And I think it surprised a lot of baseball fans because, like I said, Archer has been the subject of trade talks for 2-3 years now. just because he's got a contract that's long in years but not expensive in a lot of money, which makes him appealing to a lot of teams because a lot of teams can afford a caliber pitcher like him on that kind of contract. So it's appealing to small market teams like the Pirates. It's appealing to teams that want to go after and spend $100 million on a free agent this offseason. So it's wild to me that they even got him because a team like the Yankees or the Red Sox, who don't necessarily have needed him, could have come in and got him just for like, let's build the best roster we can.
Yeah, but I've heard. I mean, at least recently, for the past couple of years, Cashman, the Yankees GM, has been like, I am not going over the soft cap. So, and
Well,
I'm pretty sure they're really close. So, I didn't expect the Yankees to make big splash moves.
well, they acquired J.A. Happ, who is a pitcher from the Blue Jays, who's on a relatively big contract.
Yeah, but we gave up. What did we give up for that? Because I know we did acquire Hap, but like aside from that, we've done nothing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. You guys designated, or not designated, but benched. No, put on the DL Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
So that was your other big move because he's not a good defensive player.
Yeah, I know he got on the DL, but like, at least from what I'm looking at, more teams are afraid of the soft cap. So it's keeping teams in line. So you can use the cap now as a good indicator of whether teams will make that big move or not.
Yeah. But I'll tell you one team that probably does not care too much about the cap is the Cubs, taking on a big Cole Hamels contract. Cole Hamels, who's on a bad career year, not doing too well. So this is, like I said earlier, it's one of those risky moves. It could pan out or it could flop big time.
Yeah.
But either way, the Cubs probably paid a heavy price for it.
Oh yeah.
And then the Brewers, they went in for Mike Moustakas from the Royals because the Royals, I mean, they've won 30% of their games this year. They're definitely in sell mode. Probably are going to lose some of these players to free agency anyway. So I guess from the Royals standpoint, it's a smart thing to do to try to get something in return because their window is obviously closed. And from the Brewers, just trying to make jumps.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's all I've got for baseball.
Yeah.
So, ready, to move on to the next one?
Yep, let's go.
All right. So we're going to go with some of our, as fans, our top 5 favorite moments for sports. Some of it is for our team, some of it is not.
I'm pretty sure
these are in no particular order, at least for both of us. It's in no particular order, but
yeah. But I'm pretty sure all of mine are for my teams because I chose ones that I actually like sat and watched on TV or something. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if your top 5 is moments you haven't seen, at least on TV, that's a little bit weird, but...
Yeah, so...
All right.
You want to...
All right, why don't you go first with your first one?
Okay, so, again, mine are in no particular order, but I'll just read down my list, and my number 1 was the 2008 Super Bowl where the Giants defeat the Patriots to prevent their perfect season.
A lot of people were with you on that one. We're rooting against the Giants to have that big perfect season. It was that was helmet catch, right?
Yeah, helmet catch. David Tyree.
Patriots fans will think that they should have blown the whistle for holding Eli Manning. You're like grabbing his jersey and holding him for as long as they did. Everybody else in the world will say, if it was you guys, you would have wanted the play to go down like it did. So just shut up with it. So I think that's one that maybe not everybody in the world's top 5 moment, but I think we are more partial to it than seeing it have gone the other way in that game.
Oh yeah. All right, so I guess I can keep going. And again,
Yeah, go for it.
no particular order, right? And
Mm-hmm.
my next moment that I have is when Jeter broke the Yankees hits record in '09.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just watching that game, it was like a huge celebration. There were so many people there, and it was just, I feel like it really embraced sports as like how everybody gets together and celebrates, you know? It just
Mm-hmm.
brings
And that
people
was
together, and that
years.
was like a perfect
Yeah,
moment for it.
and that was years before the 3,000th hit. So like that was huge.
Yeah.
At least in terms of his Yankees legacy, I should elaborate.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's his legacy. He basically was he was a Yankee all his career, so
Mm-hmm.
any legacy is also his legacy, Yankees or not. So
Yeah, no, that's true.
yeah. So next moment I have on my list is in 2006. There were actually because when I was doing this, there were actually two moments where the Yankees have what's called a Boston Massacre, and in
Mm-hmm.
2006 there was one, and it was over 3 days. The Yankees just completely just kept beating down the Red Sox in those 3 days to just like keep hampering them out of a playoff spot.
Yeah. Okay, so it was a timely sweeper.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it hurt just a little bit more if you're, because it's a rivalry. Being a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, and then actually I like one of my like the moments where the first time I really stayed up for sports games, and aside from my last one, this is like the the moment was the 2003 Stanley Cup where the Devils beat Anaheim in Game 7.
Okay, yeah, that was it? They won that one in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, they won that one
Game
at
7.
home.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, which ties into my last one, which the one they won away in 2000. Again, I think this and the Giants Super Bowl are, if I had to put them in order, they were like top two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the 2000 Stanley Cup playoffs, Jason Arnott's goal, to win the game in overtime. This was not the finals. It was the series before, but it was like one of the first memories I have. I was like 7 years old, 6 years old, and it was like one of the first sports memories that I can actually like
Mm-hmm.
remember.
Yeah, those are the ones that stay with you for a long time in your head.
Yeah, and again, like I chose moments that really, I think, embrace sports or are really defining moments in that team's history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you wanna go through yours?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do.
We can do a big
Con-
talk
you've
afterwards.
convinced me so well. No, we don't need to do a big talk afterwards. Because it's 10:30 at night on a Saturday night, and it doesn't need to be like that. um, all right, so mine in no particular order. The 2013 NL Wild Card game, the Pirates. It was their first winning season in 20 some years. Like, first time I'd been alive and seen that they had a winning season, so it was big for me. Like, keep in mind, I'm like 20 years old at the time, so, like, it had been that long since they had a winning season. Then they make it to the wild card game. They're hosting it. It's in Pittsburgh. Cincinnati is the opponent. They put Cueto on the mound, and PNC Park, the Pirates ballpark, they go so crazy with the big Cueto chant that he drops the ball, and on the very next pitch, he gives up a home run to Russell Martin, and the building just goes berserk, and it really set up so that Cueto had like such a bad game that he ended up getting pulled relatively early, and the Pirates went on to win the game, and they haven't won a playoff game since. So they've won playoff games since, but they've made the wild card the next 2 years and didn't win either of those games. So really, that was the only round clinching game that they've had. So it was very cool to see that, especially after the years of struggle that they had gone through. So as a fan, it was big for me. Next, the 2005 NBA dunk contest. I was getting into the Phoenix Suns at the time. Seeing Amari Stoudemire in the dunk contest doing crazy dunks, and then getting Steve Nash involved. Stoudemire had one. He threw it off the backboard, which came off the backboard, hit Steve Nash on the head for like a soccer header assist. And then Stoudemire did like a 360 on it, which at the time was like the coolest thing to me. It involved different sports, albeit like not much of soccer. So it made it very interesting in that regard. Number 3, this one, the Packers-Cardinals game, playoffs 2016. The game went to overtime. I mean, we all know that Aaron Rodgers has thrown Hail Mary passes, but he had to throw 2 in the fourth, and like on the same drive in the fourth quarter to tie it up and go to overtime. And then, and keep in mind, this is a game where like defense did not matter at all. Because when the Packers and Cardinals get together, it rarely has anything to do with defense.
Yeah.
So it's a high-scoring game. And then in overtime, it was like a busted play that Carson Palmer just threw over to the sideline. Larry Fitzgerald wide open for like, takes it 70 yards down to like the 5-yard line. And then they like draw up a play where they're going to use Fitzgerald as like a running back on the next play. And they like shovel toss him the ball for a touchdown, and they win the game. So it was a wild game, and it was like, very enticing. Had your attention for a while. Number 4, to stay within football, because I was at UNCG at the time, living in North Carolina. A lot of Panthers fans, and they had that year, I think it was like 2015 or 2016. They went 15-1, and the Panthers fans, they just got so cocky. I was really rooting against them when it came to like the second half of the season in the playoffs. And then to see the Broncos beat them, because I kept telling these people that were around me, is like, look, I saw the Steelers do it in 2004. 15-1 does not guarantee you a ring. And, they all just, man, just because your team didn't do it doesn't mean my team won't. Like, we're good, we're fine. I keep telling you, man, like, it's going to hit a wall at some point.
I mean, just like 18-0 at the 2008 didn't
exactly.
guarantee it.
It hits a wall at some point. You really thought that the Super Bowl was just going to be in the bag. It's the Super Bowl. So then, final minutes, Cam Newton or one of the Panthers players
It was a
fumbled.
running back.
Yeah. So, and Cam Newton decides, I don't need to jump on the ball. F winning the Super Bowl. I don't really give a shit. I'm not trying to get injured. And the Broncos recover it and, close out the game.
That was history.
Yep. It was, Cam Newton's done questionable stuff in the past anyway, but, this was the first one on the field that we were like, really like, what the heck is he doing? So, I had a lot of fun with that. Much love to my senior year roommate, but I remember like he walked in hours after, like he didn't watch the game in our apartment at UNCG. He was at home with family, and just like 3 hours after the game ends, he walks in. And he just did not want to talk to me at all because he knew I was about to tell him, like, I told you this shit was coming. And he's like, no one talk. Just no one talk. Man, you wouldn't have had to be in this position if you were just a lot more humble about it. So I had fun with that one for a few days. Walking to class for a few days just smiling. knowing that, all those Panthers jerseys, didn't have to see them on campus for a few days.
Yep.
Yeah. And then probably this one might be, if I'm ranking them, pretty close to the top. 2009 Stanley Cup Finals, the Penguins beat the Red Wings on Max Talbot's 2 goals. Max Talbot was a third or fourth line center. He was also like my favorite player in the 2000s for the Penguins.
Dude, he just went on a tear that game, didn't he? He just took it over.
Well, he scored the only 2 goals that the Penguins had.
Yeah, no, but
So
if I remember that game correctly, like, he just looked like he was on a completely different level between the rest of the series, even the rest of past season and that game.
Well, yeah, he was a big time playoff performer. Stepped up. He played his role and executed it perfectly for years, not just in the playoffs, but that's what made him such a fan favorite. Is well, at least until he left to play for the Flyers, but he was just a very clutch performer, and it wasn't we loved him before he delivered us the cup, but he was such a big part of that, obviously. And so, yeah, to see, like, my favorite player really be the reason for why they won a cup, because it did come down to that last game, it was really fun for me.
Yeah, I think all those...
Brings back good times for both of us, I'm sure, reminiscing about great times of being a fan.
Oh, yeah. It's good, like, to see what other people, think of their, like, if you ask them what are your favorite moments in sports, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so close it out with some NFL. It had been the deadline to extend or to negotiate with players that were going to get like the franchise tag had come and gone, and all those players didn't get deals. Le'Veon Bell was probably the more notable one because he wants to get paid so much money that, like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense that he wants all this money because the only places he's going to get it is on teams where the offensive line is so bad that he's going to get injured twice a year and his career is going to get shot. But I guess he's going to be on the Steelers. Probably this will be the last year, more likely than not. Because they can transition tag him, I think, next year.
yeah.
But he'll make more money than, like, Aaron Rodgers is going to make. Like, it no longer goes to, like, top 5 average in your position. It goes to, like, top 5 or something in the NFL. It's, like, insane how much money. Like, they pay him more than they are going to pay Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown combined this year. So I don't see that the Steelers have enough financial flexibility to do that.
Yep.
And then days after that, it's kind of similar to the deal in terms of what Bell was asking for. The Rams gave Todd Gurley a 4-year, $60 million deal. No running backs gotten, 15 mil a year, average in NFL history. I think, like, the highest was like 9 something for Devonta Freeman in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, like, this was a big time step up for the market, and it probably shakes up things like negotiating with Le'Veon Bell or one of the top 5 running backs from here on out.
Oh, definitely. That money was unheard of until today, really, or until earlier, really.
Yeah, and kudos, because Gurley's a good young running back. A lot of running backs, when their years of contract, team options, and stuff like that are up, and they're testing the open market, they're at an age where
they're on the decline.
Yeah, they're on the decline because your span of how long you're in the NFL as a running back as compared to other positions, is very short. Quarterbacks stay in the league a long time. If you're a wide receiver that you know, can run routes really well, your speed doesn't necessarily matter. So you can stay in the league a long time. But as a running back, you know, once
It's
you
physical.
start to lose a little bit,
Yeah.
then it all goes and it goes quickly.
Yeah, like the wear and tear on the running back's body, because they're literally, every time they get handed the ball, they're going to get hit.
Right. Yeah. And that's not even including like when they block.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a running back that blocks, that is.
Yeah, I mean, every team has a running back that blocks. It's just if you are the guy that blocks, right?
Not well, running backs don't necessarily block well
Yeah.
these days. But, so that was relatively big, and I mean that's really the big story. Nothing else really. We haven't heard that Jerry Jones has done any stupid shit recently. Although there's no guarantee he won't by the time that the next episode drops. So, you know, I mean, it's Cowboy stuff.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to happen. Oh, the Jets quarterback Sam Darnold, as a rookie, hasn't played an NFL
He's
game
holding
yet.
out.
Already, well, he signed his contract now, but had to hold out because of he didn't know how much guaranteed money the Jets were going to give him, and he wasn't happy with what they were going to give him in the initial talks. This is a guy who hasn't given them any guarantee of success, but wants the guaranteed money before he steps on the field.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I was wondering why he held out, because, like, on the other side, I'm a Giants fan, right? And we signed Saquon Barkley almost immediately, and our contract was unprecedented. That much signing bonus.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like,
keep in mind,
what the
as
heck
the
is
number
this rookie doing?
Right. And as a number 2 overall pick, like
Your contract was basically guaranteed, like already set in stone. You're the number 2 overall pick. Like,
no,
what are you
for
holding
Barkley,
out for?
like for Barkley, it's like the top 5 picks. There's like a standard level,
Yeah.
but like when it diminishes. For 1, it's like this much money. 2 is a little lower.
Yeah.
3 is a little lower. But like you're making way more money than like the guy who's drafted 27th.
Yeah, but my thing is Sam Darnold, right? He was a high pick, so he basically knew what he was getting. I first wondered, why the heck is he holding out? Like,
Yeah.
you're up there, you're getting your money, just damn step on the field.
Yeah. I mean, like, show up to camp, man. Like,
I mean, because even
it's hard to
Odell-
convince the roster around you that you're a team guy as a rookie.
Yeah, but
And that you're invested in the future when you don't show up to camp in your first year.
yeah, and like, but even like Odell Beckham, right? We're re-signing. He's in re-signing talks, right? He stepped onto camp, no question.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he's also had a more questionable offseason. He's got to gain some points back
yeah,
with the
but
organization.
after his questionable offseason, I would not have questioned if he did not step into camp.
True.
Like,
I mean, that would have just, been the icing on top.
not really. He's still,
I mean,
Giants still had
it
to
would have
sign
been a
him.
questionable thing, but...
not really. Like,
no, I mean, in terms of his off-season activities, like...
hey, Giants and wide receivers, like, let's be honest.
Yeah, they let him walk, but...
Not even that. Just wide receivers that do questionable stupid shit.
Yeah, but like every wide receiver that the Giants have let walk in the last 10 years ended up not doing a lot elsewhere. Hakeem Nicks, Victor Cruz, like none of these guys really go on to stardom elsewhere.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, you got, like, I don't see why you hold out already.
Yeah.
You're coming from college. College and pro league is completely different. You need all the prep time you can get.
Yeah, it's something I don't really understand. Unless like in 5 years we find out that like he was getting paid at USC and he was getting paid like big money, which hopefully is not the case.
Yeah, but he was already a senior, right?
Yeah, because he went back for his senior year. Um, but it's just I don't know. It's crazy to me that like he would put to be a quarterback and to put the organization in that position. It's because it's such a position of leadership on the field is not a good sign up first. You know, I get if you're a fan of the Jets, you hope I'm wrong, but
No.
you know, there's signs that point to what I'm saying.
Oh, definitely.
So we'll see. And it's not like the Jets have tons of offensive weapons right now either.
Yeah.
So like, you know, asking for the bags of money now could uh, affect how you invest in free agent signings and drafting strategies in the future. I mean, like in terms of drafting strategies, you might get a good running back in the third round, but from a financial standpoint, I mean, you're gonna be like trading first round picks for
Yeah.
talent, and because they're on like contracts that you can afford. So we'll see how it goes, but it's not a great start for the Jets.
Definitely not.
All right, so I mean that sums up what we've got. But
I wanna.
you wanna announce something starting next week?
Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to touch up on NHL really quickly
Oh,
because
right, right,
a lot
right.
of the RFA signing window, arbitration
Mhm.
window, is passed basically, and so Ottawa had like 3 players go into arbitration. They all got
Mhm.
1-year deals that are too much for Ottawa. So you'll see a bunch of uh, unrestricted free agents next year for them. You had like one guy on a $7.3 million contract and a couple on like a 4.3. So yeah, and then the biggest one was William Carlson from Las Vegas. He got 1 year, 5.25 million for his arbitration. So
Yeah.
I mean that basically wraps up the arbitration hearings. Or he settled for 5.25 million. So
Yeah.
I mean that basically wraps up all the arbitration hearings, and we'll see on to next year. But like just coming out of arbitration, Ottawa looks like it's in a terrible place. They have something like 25 contracts ending at the end of next year, with like 13 of them being UFA and the other 12 being RFA. So
Mhm.
like if you're an Ottawa fan, you're worried. If you're Vegas, that 5.25 is not bad, especially on a 1-year deal because you're saying, well, Carlson, please prove that you can actually do this and it's not a fluke.
Yeah. And then I mean, we also saw not really arbitration, but uh, the Ducks gave John Gibson an 8-year deal.
Yeah, and I just think that's a little too long to
Mhm.
sign a goalie. I
Yeah,
really
I'd
think
agree with that.
they have like a top like I think you shouldn't sign a goalie for more than 6 years, depending on their age, obviously.
Yeah, I mean he's a younger goaltender, I think still, but like this is a big commitment.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at what happened to Montreal since they signed Carey Price, right?
Hmm.
They signed him to like a like an 8-year deal or something, also, like ten
Yeah, and he's
million.
not really been good in like 4 of those years since.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think that it's a lot, and we'll see what happens, but it could work out.
Yeah, only time will tell. But it's one of those things that it could pan out well for like 2 years and then fail after that, and then we'll all say like it was a very bad deal.
No, I'm really more worried about like the last half of the contract because the main
Hmm.
reason you do like a 6-year contract with goalies is because they're one of the more used. They are the most used, like most ice time and everything position in hockey, right? So they
Hmm.
do take a lot of the wear and tear, especially because they get a lot of other forwards crashing them and all that. So I'm just worried about like years 5 to 8 on that contract more so than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah. So again, that's all I want to talk about hockey. So announcement time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's your announcement too, so I think you're more excited to give this one. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah. So
But I'm excited for it too.
yeah. So next week, we want to do a full episode on fantasy football. So I'm talking like in depth quarterback rankings, running back rankings, all position rankings,
Hmm.
defense also. So and like where we think, depending on your league, where players should go.
Yeah, and I think from starting next week, we're going to have fantasy football to touch on pretty much every week as the season nears and as we go into the regular season.
Yeah, how
But
players perform.
it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, so like again, how players perform in the preseason games, or
Hmm.
if we see an injury, like how does that affect the board?
When your league should draft, because when is too soon.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
I mean, I can't wait to get into
That's
that
sometimes a
stuff.
big
So
deal. So,
we'll do a full episode next week and keep touching it until the season starts.
yep. So join us next week for a fantasy football episode, and we'll keep you posted on the players that you need to stay away from. Keep your ears for uh, sleepers, busts, all that kind of stuff. All right. Have a good one.